Barely. We're not even related. It's bad marriage. I just like to say I'm related.
Audience, please.
Are you ready? Okay. So first off, we would like to point out that the affirmative team presented their harms and solvency during their second constructive rather than the first, which makes for an unfair round. And then next, the affirmative team stated that CODIS, the genetic profiling system, would not be implemented with the current TSA project. But how can they know? It hasn't even happened yet. This is all theoretical. And because the affirmative team did not define domestic surveillance, we are talking about the domestic surveillance on a bigger scale, past just airports and the TSA. Domestic means relating to a particular country. Surveillance is the systematic monitoring, gathering, and analysis of information for the purpose of decision-making, risk management, and the exercise of power. Domestic surveillance is already successful. You don't need to change it. Nick Simone in 2013 stated, the director of the National Security Agency told Congress today, more than 50 terrorist plots worldwide have been prevented since the 9/11 attack through the classified surveillance programs the government uses to gather phone and internet data. Programs, he said, are legal and do not compromise the privacy and civil liberties of Americans. Army General Keith B. Alexander, who also commands the U.S. Cyber Command, told the House Intelligence Committee he plans as early as tomorrow to provide lawmakers with classified details about the plots that were filled in an effort to show how valuable the programs and to national security. Also, most people don't care about domestic surveillance. Pew Research Center wrote in December 3rd, 2013, a 44% plurality of Americans are concerned that the government's anti-terrorism policies have gone too far in restricting civil liberties of averaging people, while 39% are more concerned that these policies have not gone far enough to delicately protect the country. In July 2013, about half, 47%, expressed concern that the government was restricting civil liberties too much, while 35% worried that it was not going far to protect the country. As of recently, January 2010, a majority, 58%, expressed greater concern that the government policies had not gone far enough to provide protection from terrorism than they had gone too far in restricting civil liberties. John Cohen, on June 10, 2013, stated, a large majority of Americans say that the federal government should focus on investigating possible terrorist threats even if personal privacy is compromised, and most support the blanket tracking of telephone records in an effort to uncover terrorist activity, according to new Washington Post Pew Research Center report. Also, domestic surveillance is legal. I have an article from Walton Gerald from the 30th of October in 2015. NSA, its surveillance programs, violates no constitutional provision. It examines only the addresses and senders on emails and telephone numbers called and called from. The Supreme Court has long held that such information is not privacy protected by the Fourth Amendment, end quote. I have another piece of evidence that states that it is legal. It's from the NSA from April 15th, 2015. As part of the director, NSA chief, CSS is charged to collect, process, analyze, and produce and disseminate signals, intelligence information, and data for foreign intelligence and counterintelligence proposed to support national and departmental missions. And that's it.
Do you want any prep time?
Huh?
How would you say that alone?
Alright. Okay. So, I'd like to restate the affirmative plan. We plan to entirely eradicate the SPOT program. Our funding, we would be saving millions and spending nothing, and the TSA would enforce our plan by ensuring that the employees no longer use SPOT, and we claim legislative intent and reserves no right to clarify. which is FIAD. The negative team has said that we haven't defined domestic surveillance and has given us a definition of surveillance for a purpose in our country. The affirmative team stands by that definition as well, and the SPOT program is a form of domestic surveillance, which we are curtailing. Also, they've spoken a lot about how surveillance is legal, which it is, and as well as the SPOT program, but our point is we want to eliminate this program because it is not useful and it's harming minority travelers. We have evidence here that shows that the SPOT program is not effective at all. As we stated, only 1% of 30,000 people stopped every year by the SPOT program are ever arrested, and none of them are for terrorism. 21 of 25 TSA behavior detection officers interviewed at 4 airports acknowledged that some behavioral indicators are subjective. The GAO report said, according to USToday.com, and that was from November 13th, 2013. Also, there's some complaints of the SPOT program. The program is flawed and unnecessarily delays and harasses travelers. Taxpayer dollars would be better spent funding real police at TSA checkpoints. A second former behavior detection officer manager who also asked not to be identified told the Intercept that the program suffers from lack of science and simple inconsistency with every airport training its officers differently. The TSA has not demonstrated that behavior detection officers can consistently interpret the SPOT behavioral indicators. Also, the watchdog group Judicial Watch, which has criticized the TSA and Department of Homeland Security as virtually dysfunctional, agreed with the GAO recommendation, which is from the Washington Post. This shows that the SPOT program is ineffective and that eradicating it would help us, because then minorities wouldn't have to face the embarrassment of being randomly selected based on their race or religion. And that's all. Thank you.